Is your dream to move to Spain, but teaching English seems like the only path to living here? Well, I've been here for 7 years and on 3 different types of visas, and I've been able to create a life on my terms, one that does not include teaching English anymore. So I'm going to tell you how I did it, and tune in to find out. Welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Cepee, rhymes with Peppy from SheHitRefresh.com. And I help women age 30 and over break free from a life of routine to move abroad or travel the world long term. So back in 2015, this is what I did when I moved from Texas to Spain at 35 years old. And as I just mentioned before, I've been in Spain now for 7 years, and I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. So if you're here, you're probably looking to do something similar. And so I want to thank you so much for to tuning in to my channel. On this channel, I talk about moving abroad specifically for US citizens. And I'd love to invite you to like this video, turn on notifications, and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any future move abroad content. So before we jump into how I've been able to live in Spain for 7 years, not teach English, and make a good living, I first want to give my weekly shout out. And this week's shout out goes to William Swafford, who commented on my video, 20 pros and cons of retiring in Portugal. William says, regarding the food in Portugal, and since you said you are a vegetarian, how easy is it to be vegetarian in Portugal? William, I love this question. And I don't really have great news for you because it's actually not so easy to be vegetarian in Portugal. Of course, at the grocery store, you're going to be able to find tons of what you need to cook your own food at home. But if we're talking about being able to eat vegetarian when you're out and about in the majority of the country, it's going to be pretty difficult because the Portuguese diet relies very heavily on seafood and meat. Of course, if you're in a city like Lisbon, you're going to find alternatives and you're going to find restaurants that cater to vegans and vegetarians, but that's not going to be the case in the majority of the country. I would say your best bet to find a variety of options that don't have meat in them would be to find non-Portuguese restaurants. So for example, maybe Italian, Indian, Asian food. That's probably where you're going to find the majority of non-meat-based dishes, but you can have a variety at scale there. William, thank you so much for your question. And for anyone out there who's interested in getting a shout out, just drop a comment or question below, and you never know, you may be the next shout out that I choose. All right, so let's talk about how I've been able to live in Spain for 7 years on my terms and not rely on teaching English. So I wanted to make this video because I get asked this question a ton from the women in my community, She Hit Refresh, from people who read the blog or watch these videos, or just people who know my story that are interested in moving to Spain but really can't find a viable way in, and they're interested to know how I did it. So I just wanted to give you that lowdown and have it all here in one place so you can see my journey of where I started and where I'm at now. So when I first came to Spain in 2015, it actually wasn't my first time in Spain. I had been in Spain quite a few times before to live, to study, back in the 2000s in my 20s. So I first came to Spain in 2001 when I was 20, studied Spanish at a language academy for the summer. I came back again and did the North American Language and Culture Assistant Program, also known as the Auxiliar Program, which I did in 2006 in Cordoba, Spain when I was 26 years old. I then came back to Spain in 2010 and did a master's in Madrid at IE Business School. So I had been to Spain quite a few times. Of course, I loved it. That's why I kept coming back. But I just could never make it work on my terms. It just always felt like teaching English was the only path for me, even though I had even stayed here and got a master's degree that was not related to teaching. It was in international relations. So teaching is not my background. Teaching is not something I wanted to do in Spain long term. Nothing wrong with teaching, but it just wasn't the path that I wanted to take. I knew that being in these types of programs, you would have a limited amount of income. Usually you're making about €1,000 maximum a month. And it just wasn't going to be able to sustain the lifestyle that I wanted, especially coming to Spain at 35. It was much different than my lifestyle when I was 26. So let's see, what did I do? So in 2015, I actually came on the Auxiliar program to teach English. Yes, the program that I didn't want to do. I came and did it, and to be honest, it really did feel like a step back because, as I mentioned, this was a program that I did when I was 26 years old, when I had very little work experience, where I was trying to figure out what I was doing with my life. And here I am at 35, many years later, with work experience under my belt, having to come do this program again with a lot of people who were kind of fresh out of college. So it didn't feel like the right path for me, but at the same time, I knew that it was the only way that I could get to Spain. And I knew that once I was here, I could figure out what was next. So I told myself that I wouldn't get stuck in this program because there are actually a lot of Americans who really want to live in Spain, but this program is their only way that they can get here. And then they end up getting stuck in the program because they want to live in Spain because they can't find a way out. And then years go by and they find themselves in their late 30s and their 40s and beyond and still making that kind of €1,000 a month, or they're supplementing their work and working very hard outside of their teaching hours to teach even more classes to make enough money to have a comfortable lifestyle. So you can see how that's going. That's the path that I wanted. But on this program, I was on a student visa. That's what you get in the auxiliar program. With that program nowadays, you can actually work up to 30 hours here in Spain. So that's pretty cool. If you do come on this program, you can work in Spain and it doesn't have to be teaching English. But if you're looking to stay in Spain long term and you don't want to teach, what I did after the student visa, the next step for me was actually one where I think I got just really lucky. So if you're hoping that this is going to happen to you, I'm gonna definitely stress that it is very unlikely. It's very difficult to get a work visa. And that's what I got next. After the student visa, I got a work visa. And really, it was just luck. I'm going to put it down to luck. So I got a work visa in Spain. A Spanish startup sponsored me after the year of teaching English because I had been applying to jobs left and right everywhere that I could. And one day I saw a job posting in a Facebook group that I was in for foreigners and expats in Madrid. And it said something about they were looking for a native English speaker to join their marketing team. So my background's in marketing. I'm an English speaker. So I applied for the role, not thinking it would go anywhere because all the jobs that I applied for and got an interview for, once I went to the interview and they asked if I had working papers and I said no, they would immediately tell me they couldn't sponsor my visa. But in this case, I did go to the interview and I was very nervous. I had my interview in Spanish with the team, went to round 1 of interviews and it went really well. And I actually got a call back. And I was very surprised that I got a call back because in the first interview, I made it clear that I would need someone to sponsor my work visa for me to work for them. So in the second interview, basically they offered me the job. We talked about, I made sure that they understood and made sure that it wasn't language barrier that we were having because I stressed that I needed a work visa sponsorship and they said, okay. So that was thrilling, but also confusing because all that time in my 20s too, of when the only path I saw was teaching English, I was still also applying for jobs. The doors were just getting slammed in my face. No one wanted to sponsor an American. So I got that work visa and that was a big turning point for me because I think it unlocked a limiting belief that I had in my head that the only path for Americans in Spain is through teaching. Now, as I said, work visas are very difficult to come by. It does not mean that they are impossible to obtain. I definitely know other Americans who have gotten them. But with that work visa, I was working in the Spanish startup and really it just was not a good fit for me. Also, I didn't move to Spain to work a 9-to-5. That's what I was doing in the US that I didn't want to do and I hated. So now I was doing the same exact thing, but here in Spain, making a lot less money and working longer hours. So after just 6 months of being at that job, I actually quit. Yes. And quitting meant that I would lose my work visa. I couldn't roll that over to another job because you have to wait until you have met your 1-year mark when you have your work visa to be able to roll that over to another job in the same industry. So I quit that job and was kind of free falling in Spain and thinking about, oh my God, what are my options? I want to stay here, but I feel like I kind of screwed up my opportunities. So there was the option of going back on the student visa to teach English, but I really didn't want to do that. And so I learned about this non-lucrative visa. So at the time on the non-lucrative visa, which is kind of like a retirement visa, but I'm not retired and I wasn't retired at the time. It's a visa that you can obtain if you can prove that you have enough financial support to sustain yourself here in Spain. So at the time, it was maybe around $26,000. I was able to qualify for it. And at the time, you could also have remote income. So you could work remotely while you lived in Spain. That has since changed. The consulates in the US are not approving any applications that give any faint idea that you work remotely. So they are not allowing anyone to have any kind of passive income. but through working while living in Spain. You have to fully rely on your savings or your pensions or the many other ways that they allow you to qualify for this visa financially. Now, whether or not you can actually work in Spain on the non-lucrative is a gray area because nobody here in Spain is actively going after you if you are working on the non-lucrative. So I will drop a link below that actually addresses this whole issue. There's a few different viewpoints, but I think it's an interesting topic to know about if you're interested in the non-lucrative visa, but you also work remotely. Of course, Spain is coming out with a digital nomad visa, hopefully next year, and this will be the solution for people who are working remotely, but it's not here yet. So the non-lucrative visa is a visa that I applied for. So after I went from the student visa teaching English to the work visa, working in marketing for a Spanish startup, I then moved on to the non-lucrative visa, and I was working remotely, and I worked remotely with the skills that I had actually gained at the Spanish startup that I was working at. So I was working in marketing and social media marketing, and that's something that I had just started to learn about because at the same time I got that job, I also started my own blog talking about vegetarian food in Spain. So I was acquiring these skills, writing skills, content creating skills, Instagram, Facebook skills, community management. I was creating communities, and all those skills that I was using for my side projects and the Spanish startup, I used those skills to start getting remote gigs abroad in the US and in Asia. And so I did that little by little. I remember I started, I think I did an online course just to get some skills and understand everything better. Then I started marketing myself on Upwork, which is a freelancer's website or freelancing website. I'll drop a link below to that. I think my first gig on Upwork, I charged $12 an hour. I definitely, underbid or put my price very low because I just needed to get some experience under my belt. So then I could level up from there. So I just needed someone to give me a break. And I think I did a project for about 6 weeks, and I just kept up leveling from there. Up leveling in the sense that every time I took on a new client, I would raise my rates. So I would say within a 3-year period, I went from charging $12 an hour to charging $45 an hour with the different remote skills that I had, which were social media, community building, and content writing or content marketing. And so I was doing that for a variety of clients up until I got hired in 2020 for a US company or a US-based company in a fully remote role. So this was actually different from the freelancing gigs that I had that I was finding on Upwork or through word of mouth. The role with the US, although I was working as a freelancer for them, I had a salary, and it was actually the most that I had made since moving to Spain. And it was actually a pretty great salary for living in Spain. For the US, I would say it was pretty average. But I did that role working here in Spain for a company in the US. My hours were about 12 p.m. to 8 p.m., which wasn't a bad schedule. I think I said I got this role at the end of 2020 and did this role in 2021. So that has been my journey: student, work, non-lucrative visa. And then earlier this year, I got Spanish citizenship. So I am no longer kind of on that visa hamster wheel. Although it wasn't bad with the non-lucrative, I could renew that visa and I would have been up for permanent residency to apply for that next year. But I was able to get Spanish citizenship this year, which has been really cool. So I'm no longer chasing visas. I am now a citizen of Spain. And that has been my journey so far. So hopefully that gave you a little clarity of how I have been able to stay in Spain long term and not have to rely on teaching English. There are different paths. There are a lot of people here in Spain who have become autónomos or freelancers here in Spain, and they actually have clients here in Spain that they work with and that they make an income through that. And they're doing all kinds of things that are not related to teaching English. So definitely that's a path here. If you have a Spanish partner, that's another path for being able to stay here in Spain and get a residency/work visa in Spain. And of course, there's a route that I took as well. So I'm sure this video is probably sparking a lot of questions out there from you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. Would be happy to answer them. I hope you found this video useful. Definitely wanted to share my own story because I get a lot of questions about this, and just wanted to give some background as to how I've been able to make Spain work for me. Of course, if you need any more resources on moving to Spain or moving to Europe, please check out my digital guide, I'm Out of Here, an American's ultimate visa guide to living in Europe, where I go over the 18 easiest countries to move to based on viable visa options. You'll find over 50 viable visas in there. If you need help moving abroad and would like to work with me, I would love to work with you. So please check below. I'll drop some links below on how we can work together and make your move abroad happen. And if you're a woman age 30 and over, please join my free Facebook group, She Hit Refresh, where you can meet over 10,000 like-minded women. You'll find tons of inspiration, resources, and support in there to help make your move abroad a reality. And of course, as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, turn on notifications, and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any more move, live, or work abroad content.